Chapter 12. Reconcile. After Saberclaw came to her senses, she noticed everyone's injuries and the medical supplies laying around everywhere. However, something was missing. "Where is Lockjaw?" she asked. Everyone froze. The Sentiron had intended to keep that part a secret from the humans and just forget about it, but Saberclaw did not get the memo. Silverspot chuckled nervously. What do you mean?" She patted Saberclaw's head and continued. "You must have some sort of amnesia. Lockjaw was never here. He is probably with Rebay somewhere, like usual." She glanced over to the humans, hoping that they had bought her lie. Silverspot was very bad at lying, and Sam's eyebrows furrowed with confusion and suspicion. He tilted his head. "Lockjaw? Silverspot, you have some explaining to do." She sighed heavily and turned around to face Sam. "He helped us get Saberclaw back here when the rest of us were too weak. Nothing more." John panicked, and Lila looked at Saberclaw. The robot was alive, so Lockjaw having anything to do with her made no sense. He was the Sentiron's sworn enemy. Why would he not kill Saberclaw when she was at her weakest point? "He did what?" Sam yelled at Silverspot. "You're telling me that Killer got near Saberclaw when she was literally dying and you let him?" Silverspot tried to backtrack, but Saberclaw wasn't helping. She looked at the others with tired eyes and confusion. "He was holding me. I remember it. Why was he even close to me in the first place? I was unconscious, apparently. So I need an explanation as well." She demanded answers, and so did the humans. Lila was practically screaming now. "He could have hurt her. Are you stupid?" Ironstripe walked over to Sam and began to explain face to face. "Yes, Sam, he did carry her. However, if we hadn't let him, then Saberclaw would have bled to death. You don't mean to tell me that you would have done anything different?" Ironstripe's tone and how close he was to Sam made the human step backwards. He continued with less boldness than before. "I guess you were right. But that doesn't excuse the fact that he got so close to our base. You said he got Saberclaw back here. So doesn't that mean he would have to come here?" Sam pointed an accusing finger at Ironstripe. This could be a really bad situation. If Lockjaw didn't know where the base was now, then he could tell Rebay and everything would be over for the Sentiron. "Don't worry about that. Lockjaw didn't get within 50 yards of the base and never saw it. We simply took him within the general area, and I did my best to transport Saber the rest of the way." John let out a sigh of relief. "Well, I guess that is all right then. Wait, why did Lockjaw of all people help you all?" He was beginning to catch on. That was a very good question that no one knew the answer to except Saberclaw. She knew, but the group would never be able to get her to admit it. "We don't know why, but he did it, and we will forever be in his debt," Silverspot said solemnly as she lowered her head. Saberclaw pondered on the last image she had seen of Lockjaw. She remembered his panicked face and the way he would look over his shoulder. She also remembered the way he had held her and how it had given her so much comfort. "So he saved my life." Saberclaw was shocked by the thought of Lockjaw betraying his own psychopath leader just to save her. Silverspot nodded to Saberclaw, saying, "Yes, he did." Silverspot was trying to connect the dots, but it still made no sense. Lockjaw had been described to be arrogant and weirdly captivating by Saberclaw previously, but he didn't seem as such in person. Before she was captured during the battle, Silverspot had gone into one-on-one combat with Lockjaw, and he had looked at her with such determination and hatred. However, when he held Saberclaw, he had looked at her so longingly. Then, Silverspot remembered the way Ironstripe looked at her and finally figured it out. And the truth scared the medic when she remembered the way Saberclaw would get this gleam in her eyes whenever she talked about him, which she did often. Her eyes widened, but knew she shouldn't say anything for Saberclaw's sake. Silverspot, focusing her thoughts on Saberclaw's condition, asked the green Sentiron, "Well, Saberclaw, can you stand?" She looked at Saberclaw. The green robot shrugged and put her metal boots on the concrete floor gently. Slowly, she put pressure and attempted to stand up. Razorwing, knowing exactly what was about to happen, stood close to Saberclaw. The injured robot stood, and she was standing for about 3 seconds. Then, she stumbled and fell. Razorwing was there to steady her. He grabbed her arms and helped her brace herself against his large frame as he spoke. Easy there. Don't push yourself too hard. He held her a little too tightly, making her uncomfortable. She pushed him away and said, "Okay, I think I can stand on my own." She tried taking a few steps, but almost fell onto a wall. "I can stand, but walking is still a work in progress." Silver Spot chuckled. "Obviously you're feeling better if you're making jokes." She smirked at Saberclaw as the green robot bumped her head against the wall over and over again. Iron Stripe had walked out without anyone noticing, but when Silver Spot did notice, she sighed and rolled her eyes. She still had no idea why he had been so insistent on leaving, but her mind was already overthinking. "All right, I'm going to attempt to walk around the base. See you all later," Saberclaw said as she stumbled out of the room. Razorwing, knowing that Saberclaw needed an escort, followed her and left the humans and Silver Spot to their own devices. Silver Spot began cleaning the room, specifically all of the spilled G, and thought about what she was going to do about the situation between Saberclaw and Lockjaw. Meanwhile, Rebay was celebrating her victory and the defeat of her enemy. Cheers rang out through her warship as almost every Nextari on board celebrated. She was in the control room, cheering praises to herself, when a voice called out from the doorway. "How dare you?" it roared, stopping the music that was blaring. "You said you wouldn't hurt Silver Spot." The furious voice boomed throughout the room. Rebay tilted her head with annoyance. "Oh, come on. Stop being such a party crasher. Our deal is done. Saberclaw is dead and Earth is mine," she exclaimed, a little drowsy from whatever alien drink she had in her hand. The lighting in the room was turned off, so the darkness fully concealed whoever was angry with Rebay as they stomped up to her. The person got all up in her face fearlessly and said, "Oh, but you are mistaken, Rebay. You didn't kill Saberclaw. You stabbed her and left her for dead." News flash. Silver Spot somehow managed to save your target, and now Saberclaw is very much alive and recovering. It yelled loudly as Rebay threw her drink into a wall, scaring everyone in the room into silence as she ranted. "What do you mean? I stabbed her in the core, just like you said was the weak spot." She shoved the still-concealed person who was twice her size. "No, you didn't. You missed." "I mean, how do you miss such an easy target?" it yelled back. "Fine. If I'm the one who screwed everything up, then why didn't you just finish her off? Then your precious Silver Spot, and you would be free to go. I already have that brat Lockjaw taken care of. Speaking of which, where is that idiot?" she screamed. She called for him angrily, and he ran in from the outside hallway. "What do you need, Your Highness?" Lockjaw asked, but when he saw the silhouette of the person Rebay was talking to, he gasped. "You?" He recognized who it was, but was confused why they were here. "And not in Shackles. Where were you? Is Saberclaw still alive?" Rebay was screeching at him with anger. He shrunk backwards with fear, but answered, "Yes, barely." Rebay growled and punched him. Lockjaw fell backwards and clutched his jaw. "Well, go finish her off, Lockjaw. Why are you still here?" she yelled, and he scrambled out of the room. Lockjaw was terrified. He knew that if he didn't come back with some sort of proof that Saberclaw was dead, then Rebay would probably kill him. Razorwing and Saberclaw were walking through the woods now. Their walk had become more of a long patrol. Saberclaw was getting steadier with every step she took, but Razorwing walked by her side, just in case. "Tell me what happened," Saberclaw demanded with her head down as the two Sentiron walked. Razorwing looked at her reluctantly. "What do you mean?" he asked. The sun was directly above their head now, and the wind whistled through the trees. Birds chirped around them, and the ground shook a little after their steps. The trees were bare from the winter weather, but in this area, snow had avoided the town like mice to a cat. Pine needles coated the ground, painting it a rusty orange that was void of grass and pretty much anything else that was green. Saberclaw grabbed Razorwing's hand, stopping both of them. "After I was stabbed, why was Lockjaw holding me? Why did you let him get close to the base?" Wind blew across Razorwing's reluctant face as he responded, "I didn't. I wanted to kill Lockjaw, or at least scare him off in order to protect you. It was Silver Spot who stopped me. He insisted this, but it wasn't the entire story. Saberclaw tilted her head and laughed a little. I guess it's a good thing she did. If she didn't, I wouldn't be here right now. But what I want to know is the details I wasn't conscious enough to catch on my own. Razorwing looked at her determined face and could no longer hide anything from her. Fine. He just showed up after you got hurt, and Rebay left. He refused to leave unless we let him help. And Silverspot let him carry you back to the base because none of the rest of us were strong enough to carry you at the time. He felt guilty for not being strong enough to help her at the time. She looked at her metal boot armor and said, "He didn't try to hurt me, did he?" She already knew the answer, and Razorwing knew he didn't have to give her one. He simply hugged her, making sure to be gentle around her chest area. She pushed herself away from him with more force than she originally intended. "Wait, do you feel that?" she asked cautiously. Out of instinct, she balled her fists and raised them into a ready position. He looked in her direction and asked another question. "Feel what?" He looked around blankly. Saberclaw looked back at him with surprise and said, "Okay, you can't feel it, but I feel someone's presence. And it isn't either of us. I think I know who it is." She was interrupted by the sight of a glow from in the woods. The glow was actually two ends of Lockjaw's staff-like weapon. He stepped out of the shadows and showed himself as his weapon glowed dangerously. Razorwing, fully in a defensive position, stepped in front of Saberclaw and put his arm in front of her. Lockjaw called out to Razorwing without hesitation. "Move out of the way, Razorwing. Just let me get this over with." Razorwing gripped 6 of his throwing stars tightly. "Why are you here, Lockjaw? Are you going to try to help us again, somehow? Or just say something ominous and attack?" He bared his teeth at Lockjaw with anger. Saberclaw whispered to Razorwing, "Something tells me he isn't here to help, but don't attack him, please." This comment made Razorwing angry. Why shouldn't he attack Lockjaw? Lockjaw looked up at Saberclaw. His eyes were full of guilt and sadness, but were sharp with determination. "Look, I don't want to fight, Razorwing. Just move out of the way and let me follow orders. This is hard enough for me already." Now, everyone knew his intentions. Razorwing threw a warning star at the tree beside Lockjaw and spat. "Let me guess. Your beloved ruler told you to come finish her dirty work and kill Saber? Well, you're going to have to get through me first before you lay a finger on her." Saberclaw shoved Razorwing out of the way, revealing herself to Lockjaw, saying, "Lockjaw, I know you don't want to hurt me. Just put the weapon down." Razorwing stood beside Saberclaw, shooting Lockjaw looks that told him to obey. Lockjaw dropped his weapon at the sight of Saberclaw. She was fully awake, but the sight of dried G that he watched leak out of her that was still stained on her armor saddened him. He knew it should be easy for him to kill her, but everything was telling him not to when he saw the sheets of metal wrapped around her chest. He also noted that Razorwing had a brace on his knee that would probably be a weak point in case of a battle. Saberclaw saw him eyeing her chest and gestured towards it. "Yeah, I know you saved my life earlier, but what I don't know is why. I think you could tell me that, so just knock away your weapon so that it is easier for us to trust you." Then, Lockjaw came to a conclusion for why Saberclaw was talking to him so tenderly and why Razorwing wasn't as defensive anymore. In his mind, he concluded that she was trying to convince him to let his guard down so Razorwing could get the drop on him. He gritted his teeth with anger and commanded with a rehearsed tone as he raised his weapon to Saberclaw again. "I am completely loyal to Queen Rebay, and I am under direct orders to execute Saberclaw. Razorwing, surrender her to me, and I will let you live." Razorwing tensed up immediately when he recognized Lockjaw's tone. Razorwing heard the threat and pulled Saberclaw behind him again. Over the communication devices that were installed about a month ago, Razorwing contacted Silverspot. "Silverspot, come in. This is Razorwing. I am with Saberclaw, and we just got jumped by Lockjaw. We are probably going to need backup." Razorwing trusted that Silverspot heard the message and waited for Lockjaw to attack. Lockjaw simply walked closer very slowly and cautiously as he said, "You won't need that backup. By the time it gets here, both of you will be dead." Lockjaw lunged at Razorwing, brandishing his pole weapon. Razorwing threw a shuriken star into Lockjaw's shoulder, causing Lockjaw to yelp in pain. Saberclaw was struck slightly from Razorwing's swift movements and fell on the ground. She watched as the two robots fought furious. Lockjaw was desperately trying to get to Saberclaw, but never got close. Lockjaw knee-kicked Razorwing in the torso and punched him in the jaw. Lockjaw was a little bigger than Razorwing, and his strikes were very powerful. Razorwing didn't give himself time to recover and grabbed Lockjaw's wing, pulling him backwards as he lunged at Saberclaw. Saberclaw knew she was too weak to fight and was severely regretting taking a walk with Razorwing. Razorwing didn't let go of Lockjaw's wing, but snapped it over his own knee. Lockjaw's wing folded in ways it wasn't supposed to, and Lockjaw gasped, crying out from the pain. Razorwing threw Lockjaw into a nearby tree and stepped in front of Saberclaw, helping her to her feet again and raising his fists. He was leaking G now, and his knee throbbed. Had enough. Razorwing called out to Lockjaw as he cradled his wing in his hand. Lockjaw stood up again unsteadily and replied, "Not even close," and attacked again. However, this time, a silver arrow flew out from the forest behind Razorwing and struck Lockjaw's broken wing, tearing a small hole in it and pinning him to the tree again. Lockjaw winced as he tried to pull the arrow out of the tree and free himself. Silver Spot ran out from the woods and aimed a second arrow at Lockjaw. She spoke to Razorwing as her injured arm shook. "Wow, my aim is a lot worse than I thought." Saberclaw looked at her with wide eyes. "What do you mean? You just pinned him to that tree." She tried to be positive despite the dire situation. "I meant to hit his head, Saber," she replied plainly. "Oh, any sign of Iron Stripe?" Saberclaw hesitated. "Nope. What are we going to do with Lockjaw? Something tells me he will be stuck to that tree for a while. I have no idea, but please don't kill him." Silver Spot lowered her crossbow and turned to look at Saberclaw with an unsure face. Razorwing grabbed Saberclaw's hand and said, "You need to get out of here. There could be Nextari soldiers on their way." He insisted, but Saberclaw was still unsure. Saberclaw thought on this for a minute, but knew she didn't want to leave her teammates to fight Lockjaw. Silver Spot looked back at Lockjaw, who was still desperately and violently trying to get the arrow out of the tree. She got a good look at his eyes and realized something. His eyes glowed their signature electric blue, but they had hints of purple in their color. She gasped at a sudden realization and spoke fast to the two young robots behind her. "Wait, his eyes are half purple. That means Rebay has some sort of mind control on him. It's a long story, but Rebay has the ability to either mind control, take over someone's body, or erase someone's memories. That explains why Lockjaw looks so much like us," she excitedly exclaimed her idea. Saberclaw, intrigued, also looked at Lockjaw's optics, and they were indeed half purple. "What are you saying?" Saberclaw asked with urgency. Silver Spot fully turned her back to Lockjaw and spoke directly to Saberclaw. "Saber, do you have any previous memories before that first attack right after you came online?" she asked. Saberclaw thought. She hadn't remembered anything before, but as she tried harder to think of something, her head began to hurt. She closed her eyes and put her hand on her head. Then, memories came flooding back. She remembered everything now. Lockjaw showing off his human form to the humans, and the two of them getting their colors together. "Yes," Saberclaw exclaimed. "Lockjaw and I came online together. We were both created by Sam, and he was captured during that first attack. I have no idea why I didn't remember that until now." She trailed off with sadness, but Silverspit continued eye contact with her. Razorwing exclaimed, "And he is actually a Sentiron? Are you telling me that my designs were based off his?" He sounded panicked. Saberclaw nodded to him with a guilty smile. Razorwing put his hands on his head and looked at Lockjaw just in time to see him begin to get the arrow out of the tree. Clearly unaware of Lockjaw's escape maneuvers, Silver Spot put her hand on Saberclaw's shoulder and said, "Saberclaw, the only way to get Rebay out of his head is to remind him of something that she made him forget. And I believe you are the only one who can do that." She smiled at Saberclaw gently as she encouraged her. Just then, Lockjaw finally broke free of the arrow and charged at the three robots. He raised his fist to punch Silverspit when Razorwing body slammed him to the ground. The two struggled and fought, but Lockjaw prevailed and threw Razorwing off of him. He then grabbed Silverspit's arm and pulled her to the ground. She hit her head hard and yelped, struggling to get up. Now, Lockjaw was looming over Saberclaw, and he punched her. She fell to the ground helplessly, and he held his sharp pole up to her neck, giving just enough pressure to make a small cut that leaked blue-green liquid. He hesitated, and Saberclaw grabbed the pole. She ripped it out of his hands and threw it to the side. She reached out and gripped Lockjaw's broken wing, making him cry out in pain. Then, she twisted her body and pinned him under her with her knee on his chest. Silverspit and Razorwing watched as Saberclaw took out her dagger, which she had snagged before she left the base, and raised it. She was ready to make a devastating blow when she stopped. Lockjaw was tightly gripping Saberclaw's other hand, and she threw the dagger away from her. "Lockjaw, you don't want to kill me. Remember when we first came online dash?" He struggled under her and yelled. "I was always with Her Majesty. I didn't come online with you." He tried to pull her off of him, but she had decided not to move. "I am not going to run away from you anymore. I need you to trust me and remember our first moments together." Lockjaw stopped struggling, and the purple in his eyes flickered. Saberclaw lifted her hand, which he was still holding tightly, and gripped his hand. The purple streaks disappeared, and his eyes widened. "Saberclaw, where are we?" he asked, drowsy. She chuckled happily and helped him up. "Lockjaw, you remember now," she exclaimed, and hugged him tightly. He wrapped his hands around her waist and hugged her back, letting his head rest on her shoulder as they held each other. He gently spoke, "Hey, Saber, I missed you." His voice destroyed Saberclaw's mental walls. He greeted her like they had reunited after a long time. Silverspot put her hand over her mouth as she watched the two of them look at each other. They were now allies for the first time in a while. Lockjaw lowered his head and let his forehead met Saberclaw's. "You do know that you have a lot of explaining to do," he trailed off, but looked up and saw Silverspot and Razorwing watching them. He grabbed Saberclaw and pulled her behind him. He didn't know Razorwing and Silverspot, so he thought they were the enemy and picked up his double-edged spear, aiming to throw it at them. "Stay back," he yelled. Razorwing, still unsure of Lockjaw, was completely not a threat, turned invisible. Lockjaw's eyes widened at this as he flailed his weapon. "Show yourself," he yelled. Saberclaw was trying to get Lockjaw's attention, but he ignored her. Silverspot called out to him, saying, "Wait, I am Silverspot, and I am on your side." "Well, technically not, but I will be." Razorwing is the bot currently invisible, and he just did that because he feels threatened. "We won't hurt you." She was also looking around, trying to find Razorwing. Then, Lockjaw felt impact and a sharp pain from behind. He yelped and fell forward on his face. He activated his cannon and fired behind him, narrowly missing Saberclaw. All of the movement of being jerked around was making Saberclaw's chest hurt from the wound, getting bumped so much. She stumbled backwards and clutched her chest, exclaiming and trying to deal with the pain. Razorwing became visible just long enough for Lockjaw to see him seconds before he punched Lockjaw in the face. Razorwing hit him so hard it actually sent Lockjaw flying backwards. Razorwing stood menacingly over Lockjaw, but he felt someone grab him by the neck from behind. Silverspot pulled Razorwing off of Lockjaw as he squirmed like a puppy getting carried by the scruff. Saberclaw rushed over and grabbed Lockjaw's face as he lay as the ground, grunting from the pain. She sat on her knees beside Lockjaw while he grunted and tried to sit up. She cradled his face gently as she examined him. After she confirmed Lockjaw was all right, she yelled at Silverspot to drop Razorwing. Silverspot, sensing Saberclaw's anger, released Razorwing immediately. But instead of making sure Razorwing was also okay, she punched him in the nose. She yelled as he stumbled backwards, "Razorwing, you idiot! He isn't dangerous anymore." She also grabbed him by the back of his neck and forced him to the ground as she continued scolding, "Back off!" It should be noted that Razorwing is twice Saberclaw's size, yet she easily punished him for his action in her fury. Lockjaw, who had come back to his senses, was sitting up and smiling as he watched Saberclaw beat up Razorwing. After she had finished, Razorwing was wiping G off his upper lip and sighing heavily, regretting his actions. Then, Saberclaw turned around and sat on her knees again beside Lockjaw. She asked him, "Are you okay?" And he smiled at her. "You were a lot stronger than when I last fought you. I remember fighting you a lot, actually, and completely believing that I should be loyal to Rebay. I remember her telling me I was created by her and should fight for her." "That isn't true, though, is it?" he asked. Saberclaw nodded and held Lockjaw's hand as he stood up. Silver Spot lifted Lockjaw's wings slightly to examine it, causing him to wince. "Hey, be gentle. I still don't know you." Razorwing huffed and walked up to Lockjaw, gritting his teeth and pulling his throwing star out of Lockjaw's shoulder. Lockjaw looked at Razorwing and then back at Saberclaw. He pointed backwards at Razorwing. "What's his problem?" he asked, feeling some resentment towards Razorwing. Razorwing flicked Lockjaw on the back of the head, and Saberclaw glared at him. Razorwing put his hands up innocently, rolling his eyes. Silver Spot grabbed Lockjaw's attention by attempting to move his wing. He winced and grabbed her hand. "Seriously, that hurts." Silver Spot. "Yeah, I think I remember that being your name." She frowned and pulled her hand away from his. "Lockjaw, your wing is broken and needs medical attention. We should take you back to our base." He shrugged and continued looking at Saberclaw. He couldn't take his eyes off of her as she helped Silver Spot do something with his wing. "Wait, Silver, if Rebay sent him here, then won't she notice he's gone?" Silver Spot was about to answer when Lockjaw spoke up. "Usually, the deal with Rebay is that if you don't succeed in a mission, you shouldn't come back, especially with one of such importance. Also, she will probably assume that you killed me instead of the other way around. She isn't very smart, not going to lie." Razorwing perked up when Lockjaw said that and replied, "Not that smart, huh? She managed to trick us into a trap that almost killed us all." He crossed his arms. Lockjaw turned his head towards Razorwing, but Saberclaw and Silver Spot were keeping the rest of him still. "No, she just gets Boltar to come up with all of her war strategies and stuff. He is completely head over heels for her, and I have no idea how. She is very ugly." Saberclaw laughed at that comment, although Lockjaw wasn't wrong. "Oh, I remember Boltar," Silver Spot recalled. "He was creepy, but he was a very intelligent scientist. I learned a lot of what I know today from him." She finished examining Lockjaw's wing and gently let it fall back to Lockjaw's side. Saberclaw, however, didn't let go of Lockjaw's hand. Saberclaw's eyes widened, and she gestured wildly, and she spoke. Wait. I have an idea. Lockjaw's mission was to kill me. So let's send him back to her with something he can show her to make her think I'm dead. Then he will be back on her side and can basically spy for us." Lockjaw liked that idea, but was hesitant because it had big consequences. Silver Spot frowned again and looked at Saberclaw as she gave a warning. "That would be extremely risky, Saber. Rebay may not notice that Lockjaw is under her control anymore, but if she figures out that Lockjaw didn't kill you willingly, she surely will kill him, or worse." Saberclaw thought for a minute. She had just got Lockjaw back, and there was no way she was going to lose him again. "I'll do it," Lockjaw said with determination. "If it will help with the war effort, then I'll do it." Saberclaw buried her face into him as she hugged him. "But what if you get caught? Then I'd lose you again." He put one of his hands on the back of Saberclaw's head, and the other rubbed her back, comforting her. "Don't worry. I won't get caught, and I will come back every time, I promise." Razorwing watched this and rolled his eyes, tired of Saberclaw's actions toward Lockjaw. "Well," he asked, "are you going to go spy, or just stand there?" Lockjaw turned, and his eyes hardened when he made eye contact with Razorwing. The two glared at each other, but Saberclaw still didn't let go of Lockjaw's hand as she said, "First of all, chill, Razorwing. Second of all, you broke his wing, remember? He can't fly. And third of all, we still need to figure out something for him to give to Rebay to completely have her fooled." The four of them thought for a minute on what they were going to send with Lockjaw. Then, Saberclaw got an idea and reached for Lockjaw's double-bladed spear. She couldn't reach it, so when he realized that she wanted it, he smiled, got it, and gave it to her. He watched her, confused but panicked when she carried out her idea. She winced as she used it to slit her palm and let the G drip onto both of the blades. He grabbed her hand and, panicked, he questioned her. "Are you okay? Why did you do that?" She shoved the covered spear into Lockjaw's hands, saying, "I'm fine. However, that much spilled G should be enough to convince Rebay that you killed me." Silver Spot, moved by Saberclaw's courage, also chimed in, "Your broken wing will be a sign of a struggle as well. Now go, but make sure to come back to the hangar you first came online and occasionally, so we can check in on you." She smiled at him like a sweet mother figure. Lockjaw nodded, kissed Saberclaw's hand, and walked off into the forest. Razorwing huffed as the glow from Saberclaw's spilled G disappeared. Lockjaw was one of the most annoying people to him. The way he hugged Saberclaw and kissed her hand made him cringe. Although, he was very jealous.